was born in England, in Birmingham, in 1936. My mother and father actually met in Canada. They came here as orphan children. I think home children, I think they were called. And they met in Ottawa, got married there, and then they decided to go back to England because the depression in Canada was much more severe than it was in England. At least in England you could get some help from the government and welfare and such like, which probably didn't exist to that extent in Canada, so they thought it would be better to go back. They went back, and then the children were born, and they had 5 children, one after the other, last one being born in 1940. So unfortunately they decided to go back to England just before the war started. My father was conscripted into the army, and my mother was left with 5 little kids and to face the war, And we lived in a big industrial city, Birmingham, which was bombed quite a few times, and it was in the middle of the war itself. I left school when I was 13, and mainly because they needed children to go into industry in those days and help out, So, eventually I was conscripted into the British Army myself at aged 18. I served 2 years there, and then after the army I went back to work and met my wife-to-be and landed up in Canada in 1960. I landed up in Toronto and went to work. I was a millwright in England. I lost my job as an electrical apprentice, so when that happened I turned and took an apprenticeship with them as a millwright. I worked at the Austin Motor Company in Longbridge in Birmingham, and I had the qualification here for a job, but times were bad in this country then. There wasn't much work about, so I actually went to work for Simpson Sears and in their sorting department in Toronto. People used to make purchases in those days, but they never carry them home, and they'd have them delivered. So the trucks used to come out to us, and we'd sort the parcels through the different streets, and they'd go back out again and be delivered. That's the sort of job I had there for a while. And then eventually I did get to work in my trade, and that was mostly in construction. Joined the Millwrights Union, and in the meantime I was having children. I had 2 girls, Susan and Victoria. After a few years in Canada, we lived in different places and finished up living in Bramley. And from there we decided to go back to England ourselves to try it again over there. And we went back to my wife's hometown, which was Newquay in Wales. It's a seaside town, so we bought a shop there. And it's a resort town, so we were very busy in the summer and not so much to do in the winter, but we had a good life there, and the children loved going to the beach every day and such like. We enjoyed that. But we weren't making much progress money-wise, so we decided to come back to Canada. So I came to Elliot Lake in 1980, which is 31 years ago now. So I only came for a couple of years, but for some reason the years have flown by. I don't know why or how, but they have. And yeah, 31 years later, I'm still here. In my working life, I suppose just being able to maintain a steady job and the ability to do that job, physically and mentally. And it's a very physical job being a millwright, but I was able to manage that even with bad backs and strains and pains. And in the mining industry there's always hurts and injuries to contend with, but I got through all that. So, yeah, I think that was that was okay. And then, of course, my personal life was being married for nearly 40 years.